Hello, and welcome to the Cinema Lounge podcast, where we just chill and talk about movies. I am your host, Garrett Inman, and I'm back home. I have moved out of college for this semester, finishing up finals this week, but most of them are online, so went ahead and just moved back here and work on solid setup for the summer. But yeah, welcome to the podcast. I might be whispering a little bit. It might sound like that. It might not. Who knows? But I'm recording this a little late at night because I've had a very busy weekend. But yes, today we are going to be talking about Invincible Season 1, mainly because I kind of forgot to do any prep work, and Invincible just wrapped up its first season this past Friday, and it's a show I want to talk about, so might as well talk about it. But first, I would like to introduce, not a guest, but I would like to introduce a new segment I want to try out. And that segment is called This Week in Movie News, where I'm going to try to pull some interesting news stories that I have come across and just kind of talk about them, I guess. Or just let y'all know, just to kind of spice things up. So, without further ado, let's play This Week in Movie News. This Week in Movie News is brought to you by the biggest awards show in film, the Oscars. The Oscars were last week, but drew in lowest number of viewers and ratings in a while. It was down 56% in viewership and 60% in ratings. Yikes. While there were many wins websites were buzzing about, most of the wins came as expected. Nomadland came in with a win for Best Picture and Best Director. Anthony Hopkins had an upset win against the late Chadwick Boseman for Best Lead Actor in a Film, causing controversy online. Hopkins, the classy man that he is, released a video honoring Boseman. Also, Tyler Perry had a really good speech. Shout out to him. Congrats to all of the nominees and winners of the Oscars this year. Too bad I didn't watch it. In other news, Marvel confirmed Captain America 4 is now in the works, with the screenwriter being the showrunner for Falcon and the Winter Soldier. If I had watched more than 2 episodes of that show, maybe I would care about this more. Ever since their debut last week, Mortal Kombat and Demon Slayer have been locked in battle for the box office. And according to the numbers, Mortal Kombat slayed Demon Slayer in this week's box office brawl, topping out with $22.5 million. Hopefully, this will be the beginning of the revival of the cinemas. Elon Musk was announced to host an episode of SNL, much to the chagrin of Twitter. If I cared or watched SNL, maybe this would be more important to me. Roku TV and Google have been in a spat, leading to YouTube TV being pulled from Roku televisions. There's that. Production of Game of Thrones spin-off and prequel House of Dragons has started production this week, and I am cautiously optimistic to see this expansion of the world of Westeros. It was also announced that a sequel to the hit cartoon The Flintstones is in the works at Fox, joining similar shows like the currently running Harley Quinn and a previously announced in February Velma cartoon. Yes, that Velma. Yay! Godzilla vs. Kong director Alex Wingard has announced that he is in talks to direct the next movie in the legendary Monsterverse. DC has announced the return of its Fandome this October, and I am excited to see the Snyder Bros and normal people have fisticuffs in the halls of these conventions. Free streaming service Tubi has announced that they plan to release original content backed by Fox. There are also a lot of casting announcements this week, but the 2 I took notice of is Taika Waititi portraying notorious pirate Blackbeard in an HBO Max original, and Finn Wittrock coming in as Guy Gardner for a DC Green Lanterns TV show. A negative 80-year-old review uploaded to Rotten Tomatoes ruined Citizen Kane's perfect 100% score, losing to the likes of Paddington 2. All hail the perfection of Paddington. And that has been the movie news this week. Alright, I hope you guys liked that. I'm going to try to make this part of the regular format coming up. And maybe reach out to someone to do it for me. And just get them to feature alongside me. But for now, I'm going to be doing that segment. And yeah, so just to briefly talk about some of it. First off, the Oscars happened. I didn't watch them. And I gotta say I don't really care too much about them anymore. It was pretty obvious Nomadland was gonna win. I was not a huge fan of the movie, but it was pretty obvious that it was gonna come away with the win. The Anthony Hopkins controversy. I mean, in my opinion, he definitely had the best performance, but yeah, it's kind of jank. Sorry, I'm messing with the wire and trying to make sure it doesn't keep hitting the mic, but it was kind of jank that they didn't give like Chadwick Boseman a post-mortem Oscar. I probably would have given it to him, even though I thought Anthony Hopkins did a better job, but that's just me. I saw Tyler Perry's speech. I liked it a lot. Just pretty much saying, hey, we can't just be spreading blanket hate towards anybody. And I think that is a message that is long forgotten in today's society from everybody. We just want to cloak certain people in a blanket and make assumptions and spread hate towards them because of that. Yeah, so that's all I cared about with the Oscars. Marvel confirming Captain America 4. First off, geez Louise, reporter means me is a very cynical person, isn't he? But it's true. I've only seen 2 episodes of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I saw the first and the 4th one. I was visiting a friend. They just watched the 4th one while I was there, and it looked good. I'm burnt out on Marvel right now, so it's just really hard for me to really care about getting into any of their properties right now. And I might do like a full episode where I just talk about that, because the people I've talked to either fully agree with me or are just like completely riding the Marvel wave, and I can't hop on it right now. Mortal Kombat Demon Slayer thing. I've seen Mortal Kombat, talked about it last week. You know, Mortal Kombat's a more popular franchise, although it's good to see something that's a bit more obscure in today's culture, like Demon Slayer, put up a fighting chance. I haven't seen Demon Slayer, haven't seen the first season of it, but I've heard it's good. If you're interested in that, go check it out. SNL, don't care about SNL. I just thought it was a funny story because apparently Twitter just hates Elon Musk for no reason because he's not this giant corporate guy shoving opinions down people's throats. He's just kind of out there booling and living his best life, and I can't personally hate him for that. The Roku TV thing, I have a Vizio, I think. No, it's an Insignia. So that doesn't really affect me. I don't use YouTube TV. I just thought it was an interesting story that these two companies are fighting, and that is now causing conflict, or that's causing some people who own Roku TVs to lose something that they probably use. I'm excited for House of Dragons. Wasn't a huge fan of Game of Thrones. I liked the first 4 seasons, wasn't a huge fan of the last 4 seasons, but I'm excited to see where House of Dragons goes. The main thing I wanted to talk about was this Flintstones thing. Please don't do that. Don't do that at all. I don't want to see an adult animated cartoon about the Flintstones where Fred is an alcoholic or Barney is, I don't know, chronically depressed. I, I don't care. I don't want freaking Elizabeth Banks voicing Pebbles as a grown adult woman and, I don't know, figuring out her sexuality or whatever. I don't... Pebbles... Pebbles was a little baby. I don't want her to be anything other than a little baby. Because that's what the Flintstones was. Are we gonna have a freaking episode where they have to put down the dinosaur they have as a pet? Like, it worked for Harley Quinn. I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's good. I've seen some clips and I like it. It works for Harley Quinn, so maybe. But Harley Quinn is also a more adult character. The Flintstones is more slice of life, laid back, and now we're gonna make an adult animated cartoon of it. I don't want that because typically adult animated cartoons go way overboard on the adult, and we're probably either going to see or talk about some yabba dabba dong, and I don't want that. And I don't want that. Also, in looking that up, I found out about the Velma thing. Why the crap are we doing an adult animated cartoon about Velma from Scooby-Doo? Like, I get that there's some dudes out there who found her attractive, but like, do we need that? Do we need an adult animated Velma cartoon? Is it gonna be like Daria or what? you know, Very strange. Strange choices these studios make sometimes. Adam Wingard, that was pretty much a gimme to me. Like, I didn't need we have a confirmation. That was just kind of like well, yeah, obviously. Excited for the DC fandom. I'm not going to probably participate in it, but hey, like I said in the clip, the segment, it might be fun to see some fisticuffs. Next, Tubi. I have Tubi. I love Tubi. Doesn't have like big franchises or anything, but it's nice to have a free streaming service to just, it has that movie on here. I might as well watch that. Check that out. They have a couple of TV shows that I've been wanting to check out that I've watched a little bit of. So I use it regularly and I like it. You might as well get it. It's free, and now they're about to start making original content like IMDb TV started doing when they released Alex Rider last year, or Sony Crackle has been doing for the past few years. And then I ended it with this one because I just thought it was funny. An 80-year-old negative critic review ruins Citizen Kane's perfect 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes, and now everyone's talking about Paddington 2 being the perfect movie, the best movie of all time, which is very funny to me, and I think it's very funny that Citizen Kane is commonly referred to in most circles as the best movie of all time until I think it got booted down by Vertigo, but it's funny that it's the best movie of all time and now it's been beaten out by Paddington 2, which I've heard is good. I haven't seen it, but still, I found that incredibly hilarious. But speaking of, this past week in big movie news, first off, this past weekend, Without Remorse came out on Amazon Prime. The Mitchells vs. the Machines came out on Netflix. I have seen both. Without Remorse is very okay, very, very just down the middle. But if it seems interesting to you, go watch it, I guess. Michael B. Jordan carries that movie on his back. But I just watched Mitchell vs. the Machines with the family, teared up a little bit, laughed out loud. I thought it was hilarious and very emotional. Very unique animation. Go see that. Go watch that if you have a Netflix. Most people do. If not, steal people's passwords. I don't advocate for that, but, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. But yeah. Also, Invincible. Season 1 wrapped up this weekend, and I am looking at the IMDb page right now. And this was a very good show. I started reading the comics maybe 3-4 days before they debuted the first episode, So I'm very new to the comics, but I'm about 85, I think 85, 90, somewhere. Let me check, because I've been reading them online. I'm on the 89th issue of the Invincible comics, and I am loving them. I don't read a lot of comics. Excuse me. I don't read a lot of comics, but this is far and away my favorite line I've read. Most of the lines I've read are very short because I just don't think I have the time for it. But I've just been super invested in this. It's been, well, I mean, how many episodes? I've been reading these for about 6 weeks, and I'm just like super, super into them. So, Invincible, I'm going to start non-spoilers, but this is a show it's very difficult to talk about non-spoilers with because like something happens at the end of the first episode and it's like I want to talk about it. I want to talk about the rest of the season going forward, but if I talk about the rest of the season going forward, it's going to spoil the end of that first episode, and that, like, come on, it's something big that you have to just watch it not knowing what's going to happen. But this is speaking of adult animated shows, this is an adult animated show based on the Image comic Invincible, and it is about a teenager who has a dad who's pretty much like this world's Superman. He's the most powerful super hero on the planet Earth. Super speed, super strength, very powerful hero, and he starts to develop powers of his own and decides he wants to become a superhero named Invincible. The long and the short of it, no spoilers first. Very good. Mark Grayson is a great character. Omni-Man is a great character. We have a world-class cast here. Stephen Yeun is Mark Grayson, and I just like listened for his voice, and I still couldn't really tell that it was Stephen Yeun. Stephen Yeun does an amazing job. You have Sandra Oh as Mark's mother, Debbie. J.K. Simmons as Omni-Man, who, I mean, that casting is so good. Zazie Beetz. You have classic veteran voice actors Grey Griffin as Monster Girl and other characters, and Kevin Michael Richardson as the Mauler Twins. Walter Goggins, Jillian Jacobs, Zachary Quinto, Jason Mantzoukas, who the more I hear from him, the more work I see from him, the more bigger and bigger fan I become of him, and I think he's just hilarious. Carrie Payton, who notably voices Cyborg in Teen Titans, great voice actor. Clancy Brown, Mark Hamill, John Hamm, Seth Rogen, Gary Anthony Williams, Mahershala Ali is in this. This cast is just so amazing. And all the characters in this show are really good. Almost all prominent characters have something going on in their lives that make them very sympathetic. You can buy into their struggles. Everyone from Mark to Debbie to Omni-Man to Rexplode to even minor characters like Black Samson. They take the time to flesh out most of these characters. And you can really buy where they're coming from. And something I've loved about the comics so far, every character in the comics so far has had the chance to play the antagonist. Because every character has super strong beliefs. They so strongly believe in whatever it is they're doing that it brings them into contact with other characters. So then we always have one of the characters being an antagonist, and that includes Mark in the comics, where they hold these strong beliefs that it turns people against them or they turn against people they know. and that makes for a very compelling show and comics. So I love the characters, the action, very, very gory. I will say this in the non-spoiler section. It starts out very simplistic and very laid back, but then suddenly you get some gore towards the end. This big event happens and it's just completely out of nowhere, and I don't want to describe how much, but anytime they use blood, it's not in a gratuitous way. It's not like, oh shoot, this dude's head just exploded, right? Like The Boys. If you're going to have any problems with The Boys, it gets very gratuitous and self-indulgent in its gore. It just, like, blood everywhere. Look at how cool and how epic and gritty this show is, because we're just throwing blood and, like, ripping apart people all over the place. But with this, it is genuinely, every time, catches you off guard, because it's presented in this super horrific point of view. I mean, you have Mark on his first superhero outing trying to save this old lady, and it's this harrowing thing because people are dying all around him, and his one goal is to try to save this old lady. And it's disturbing. It's not, holy crap, people are disintegrating. It's, oh my gosh, like, will Mark get out of this? Will Mark save this lady? And it portrays it with such realism, even though it's over the top, and that's really impressive. Yeah, I mean, that's about as vague as I can get it without spoiling anything. So, for people who haven't seen it, stop listening now, come back later, whatever. I give it a 9 out of 10. Go watch it. It's on Amazon Prime. Really good show. I am someone who just habitually likes to rank things. I rank my favorite foods, my favorite movies, TV shows. So I have a rating of every single show that's currently running now that I am currently keeping up with. And on that list, Invincible is like 7th or 6th place. And I say 7th or 6th because Infinity Train's on that list. And if you watched a couple weeks ago, that show might not be currently running anymore. It might be canceled. So depending on if we get Infinity Train renewed, because I am kind of a part of an effort to try to get this show renewed, constantly watching it. There's people tweeting about it. And we're trying to we're trying to show that this show has strong fan base, yada, 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 whatever. That's not what this episode's about, but if it's on there, it's in 7th place. If it's not, Invincible's in 6th place. And if you're wondering, my favorite show right now that currently has seasons planned on shooting, currently still in circulation, my favorite show right now is Barry. That is, it's a strange choice, but Barry is genuinely a great show. The more I think about it, the more I watch it and rewatch it, the more in love I fall in love with those characters. I'll have to talk about Barry at a certain point, but it's such a good show. So for me, it would be like, hold on, I'll just pull up the list. Might as well. I have my computer in front of me. So I'm currently watching 19 shows. So one would be Barry. Love Barry. Then Infinity Train. Then a show, Apple TV Plus, original Ted Lasso, which I think is massively underlooked, underappreciated. Such a good show. Ted Lasso, Stranger Things, Young Justice. I think they got greenlit for a 4th season. That's a great cartoon on HBO Max. South Park, although the more I watch of it, I binged all 24 seasons of South Park over the course of a year. And while I had a great time with it and I loved a lot of their episodes, the more time I spend away from it, the less I like it. So that's constantly moving down my list. Then Invincible, Then the Sons of Anarchy spinoff, Mayans MC. Then the Apple TV Plus original morning show, which is really good show. Then Cobra Kai at number 10. Those are my top 10. Marvelous Miss Maisel, Amazon Prime original. Go watch it. Really good, really funny. Really just unique show, I think, for me. Final Space, made by YouTuber Olin Rogers. Really surprisingly good animated show. Then right below that's Rick and Morty, which might be controversial, but Rick and Morty is a show I go back and forth on how much I like it. Right now I'm just kind of like, it's good, but not one of my favorites. Doom Patrol, HBO Max, that is a really good show. Really goofy, but really good. Solar Opposites, which is made by Justin Roiland. I watched the first 2 seasons of that a few weeks back. The normal stuff, the normal everyday alien stuff is okay, but the stuff with the wall storyline in that show is amazing. Upload, which is, I think, made by the guy who created The Office. Not as good as The Office. I'm not a huge fan of The Office, but I will admit The Office is good. This is not as good as The Office. Then The Umbrella Academy, I kind of fell off of it. An ABC show called The Rookie, which I started out really liking, and it's kind of just fallen off recently. And then lastly, the cinematic silver screen masterpiece Riverdale. Yeah, I watched Riverdale. I started watching it with my friends, and we got like 3 seasons in. We're having a great time watching it. It's such a bad show, but we're having a great time. But yeah, that was a massive sidetrack. We're like, 25, 26, 27 minutes into this? And I have barely even scratched the surface of Invincible. So we're gonna narrow it down now. This is where we get into the spoilers part. So mark right here. We are into the spoiler section. Hopefully that side tangent bought enough time for people who haven't seen this show to go watch it. But dang, this show, man. I'm going to give you one last chance. If you haven't seen this show, go watch it. Firstly. Secondly, come back. Please. I need views. I need listens. I need to just eat all this stuff up, right? So, 3, 2, 1. Spoilers. Holy crap, the end of that first episode, man. So I started reading the comics ahead of time. I actually got to it in the comics before I watched the episode. And I'm not going to lie, I kind of like it how it happens in the comics. In the comics, so first off, at the end of this first episode, when Omni-Man just comes in and just beats the crap out of the Guardians of the Globe. You spend the entire episode building them up as the greatest superheroes of all time, and then suddenly he just comes in and they just go to town and beats them up. He grabs Red Rush and just crushes his skull, right, and kills them all and barely survives. In the comics, it's different, and I like how they do it in the comics. I think this happens in issue 10 or 11, don't quote me on this, but in the comics, they build up the Guardians of the Globe as Invincible's learning. Like, you meet Invincible first, you meet Mark first, and he's learning to use his powers, interacting with supervillains, superheroes, and kind of getting a gauge of the wider scope of the superhero world. And they constantly talk up the Guardians of the Globe. They're like, oh my gosh, the Guardians of the Globe are the best superhero team ever. And you finally get your first issue, and they're like, the debut of the Guardians of the Globe, and you just see each of them doing their own thing, kind of similar to how it happens in the show where, like, Red Rush is on his date with his girlfriend, Aquarius is sitting in Atlantis and just going, I really need something to do, man. He's just chilling. He just wants something to do, and they all show up at the headquarters, and then just one by one, each panel is just one of them dying, one of them dying, one of them dying, one of them dying, and Omni-Man just dispatches of all of them in the flash of an eye. And the last panel is him just standing over them, all of them just bloody corpses, and he stands over them, and then the issue ends. He gets away scot-free. No one knows he was even there. And in the show, I think, just because 8 episodes, they have to make this an investigation, condense it down. They had him actually have a fight, made it a lot more gory, so it works. It works well. But the first episode, you could argue it's a bit generic, but I think the end of it just completely flips the script. And once you hit that moment, you go, this is the kind of show it's going to be. We're going to go forward. My phone's blowing up right now. We're going to go forward, and this is going to be a bloody show with an investigation. We have Damien Darkblood investigating the deaths of the Guardians of the Globe, and he becomes a scapegoat for Nolan/Omni-Man, but also a scapegoat for the U.S. government. Omni-Man only thinks Damien's onto him, but the U.S. government is also onto Nolan, and they play this game of, Damien, you have to lay off of him or he's going to be aware we're investigating him. But Damien continues to push and push and push. So they go, screw it. They banish Damien to hell. And he leaves behind his journal for Debbie to find. She finds out Omni-Man was the one who killed the Guardians of the Globe, which leads to her just having these fights with Nolan. And they do a really good job of, you see Nolan's obviously the bad guy, right? But you see moments of humanity where he gets into a fight with Debbie, he punches a hole in the wall, and he just sits down and looks so concerned and depressed. You can clearly tell he clears for Debbie, but in that final confrontation where he tells Mark, she was just nothing to me. But you see him hesitate. You see him trying to just force himself into this way of thinking. And it makes it all the more tragic. He genuinely couldn't come back from this, but he doesn't. He chooses to constantly dive in and resist change, resist growth. Kind of like Simon in season 3 of Infinity Train. And that pushes him further and further into villainy. So the first episode's great. Second episode expands the world. We have the Flaxsen Invasion, which are these alien race beings from another dimension who their time works differently in that dimension, to where time is really quick. So when they come here, they age rapidly and die. So they have to fight these Flaxsens who, despite that really, really bad weakness, somehow manage to be credible threats. Invincible tries to save this old lady, ends up accidentally crushing her, and he has to rush her to the hospital and she dies. That is tragic and depressing. I really like Robot. They kind of fast-tracked his plotline where he hires the Mauler Twins to clone a body of Rexplode, so he can put his little baby, his little deformed fetus mind into it. Rexplode, surprisingly really good. He's hilarious. He's a douchebag, but he's really funny when he does it, and you still see a little bit of growth in him towards the end, where he gets caught cheating on Adam Eve, who he's dating, with Duplicate. And you just kind of see him reflect on his bad decisions until this really poignant moment at the end of the show where they create a new Guardians of the Globe in episode 2, since the original died. And the new team consists of Robot, who he's doing his own thing. Robot, Rexplode, Duplicate, Black Samson, who was an original member, lost his powers and got kicked off, and Monster Girl. I think I'm not missing anyone. Is Bulletproof doesn't join the team yet. Crap. Spoilers. No one knows who Bulletproof is. And Monster Girl. So Monster Girl and Robot start up this kind of romance-ish type relationship. But this new Guardians of the Globe, they get the original Guardians team base. And in the base, there's this giant smear of blood. And Cecil, who is kind of like the Nick Fury, Amanda Waller of this show, he tells them, you don't get to wipe that off until you earn it. And at the end of the season, they have a really poignant moment where they fight to save people amidst Mark and Nolan's fight. And they get back, and Rex gets up and says, like, just starts washing off the blood. And Black Samson, who has been giving him a hard time the entire season, starts beefing with him until the rest of the team stands up for Rex. And Black Samson just looks at him and goes, look at that, now we're a team. Where everyone's finally ready to stand up for the worst dude on the team. And they clean off the blood together. That's a really good moment. That wasn't in the comics. Black Samson was a really good character. He loses his powers, but after fighting a character named Battle Beast, who is freaking epic, he gets put into a coma that he recovers from by somehow regaining his powers. His powers reactivate, and he's more powerful than ever. And I love him because he's kind of old guard superheroes having to deal with these kids. And you kind of feel for him in that. Adam Eve is kind of this third-party superhero. She's originally a part of the team with Rexplode, Robot, Duplicate, but then she kind of goes off and does her own thing, goes to Africa. Well, in the comics it's Africa. I'm pretty sure she just goes off to the middle of nowhere, builds herself a house, and lives there and tries to just help people by not being a superhero and just trying to help them more practically. But yeah, I'm just bouncing all over the place. She's a good character. And yeah, long story short, I was going to go by this episode by episode, but I'm kind of all over the place. Episode 3 was also really good. This has to deal with Mark kind of balancing everything in his life. He meets Adam Eve, recognizes her from high school. In high school, he tells her that he's invincible. And the main thing with that is Robot assembles a new team, and they like, he tries people out, forms the new Guardians of the Globe. Goodness, Mark and Adam Eve have to go take down Dr. Seismic, who is a crazy person in this, who's minored in gender studies, which was just a hilarious addition to his character. Episode 4 was okay. It was a bit of a weaker episode. It wasn't bad, but it, like, compared to the first 3 episodes, this one was a bit slower. Mark goes to Mars for the first time to help out some astronauts, and they get kidnapped by Martians. He rescues them, but one, Russ Livingston, gets left behind, and it turns out there's the slave race called the Sequids, who are complacent, or they're enslaved by the Martians. And the Martians enslaved them because the Sequids need hosts in order to live, and they can't bond with Martians, but because Russ gets left behind, he bonds with all the Sequids and overtakes the Martians, which will come into play in the later seasons if they kind of stick to the comics. But, you know, it's solid. Nolan and Debbie get some cute moments. But, yeah, and I think somewhere in those episodes, Mark gets to interact with Alan the alien for the first time, who is this guy, a part of the coalition of planets, who's kind of testing planets to make sure they're strong enough to defend extraterrestrial threats. And Alan's not really super important. He just kind of has just chills with Mark, has a couple of conversations with him throughout the season. Well, at the end of the season and in the middle of the season, just kind of talks with him. Alan's great. I love him. Voiced by Seth Rogen. I can't believe I did that. The next episode, Mark teams up with the first supervillain he ever fought, named Titan, voiced by Mahershala Ali, to take down a crime boss who is voiced by Jeffrey Donovan, who I just finished watching Burn Notice. Jeffrey Donovan, I freaking love after watching that show, and he's great in this. Robot Head is such a hilarious character. He has this iconic he has this iconic, not iconic, but just funny voice. They made the creative choice to auto-tune him, and it is hilarious. There's this scene that lives rent-free in my freaking head, where he talks to Titan and he just goes, "I know where your family lives," and it's the funniest freaking line delivery ever, and it's just perfect. And that's the thing. The humor in the show is just so great. It's not like your typical animated comedy humor. It's very, very out of the box, off the wall. I say off the wall, that implies it's a screwball comedy. It's not screwball. It's very specific creative choices that add to humor, like auto-tuned voices or just the awkward ways the characters talk. Invincible himself reminds me a lot of Peter Parker in a lot of ways in terms of just his interaction with characters. Then we get to the 6th episode, which I'm not a huge fan of. This episode was the weak point of the season for me, and why it's not a 10 out of 10. It's a 9 out of 10 because of this episode, where Mark goes to college campus to visit to see if he wants to go to the school with his best friend and his girlfriend. And not only is it a weak episode, it's weak because this is where I'm going to get into my major issue. Amber's a very annoying character. She's kind of like Skylar from Breaking Bad, but I guess not that obnoxious or that detestable, but she's just annoying because she really just is there to get mad at Mark because he's ditching him, only for him to reveal his secret identity, and she just goes, "Oh, I know. Then why the crap were you pissed off?" "Well, because you didn't tell me." "Then you should have brought this to him. It's a secret identity." What do you think he was gonna do? I just didn't like her character too much. But the Reanimen were cool. D.A. Sinclair is an important character. He kidnaps college dudes and turns them into robotic zombies, which is cool. It was just a very slow episode that focused on the most annoying and weakest part of the show. But then the last 2 episodes just come in and it's just violent, brutal. Omni-Man gets confronted by Cecil, by his wife. He faces off against this giant freaking kaiju beast. And then at the very end of the episode, so he gets confronted by the Immortal, who was an original member of the Guardians of the Globe. He gets killed in the first episode, but they bring him back to life, or the Mauler Twins do, who have been doing their own thing. I'll get to them in a second. He gets brought back to life and immediately goes after Omni-Man. They have a scuffle. Omni-Man just cuts the dude in half again. And Mark and him have a confrontation, which leads to the last episode where they have a 15 to 20 minute fight throughout the world. And it is insane. There's a moment where Omni-Man just picks up Mark, holds him in front of a subway, and the subway just comes through, and these people are just literally disintegrating. They're dying on contact with Mark, and it's just so brutal, man. But yeah, the Mauler Twins are probably my favorite, like, minor characters. They're in every episode, but they kind of don't. I won't say they don't do a lot. You don't get a lot of character development with them. You get their shtick. They're in the first episode attacking the White House, being stopped by the Guardians of the Globe. They're in the second episode being released from prison by Robot. In the third episode, they meet Robot, and Robot hires them to create a clone body. And then they're working on the clone body, having conversations with Robot. They succeed, create a clone of Rexplode for Robot, and then Robot's like, well, I'm going to take you to jail now. And they go, we can't have that. So they fight him, and then Robot has to leave because he gets called away on a mission. So the Mauler Twins decide to burn down everything, and they decide to burn down their warehouse, but not before they grave rob the Immortal's grave, bring the Immortal back to life, and then the Immortal goes off to fight Omni-Man. And then they're brought in by Cecil. Dude, the Mauler Twins are fun characters. They're these two blue giant jack dudes. One of them's a clone of the other, but they constantly argue about who's the clone and who's the original. And for whatever reason, and I love that they do it, but it's kind of random. Every time the Mauler Twins are doing something, action, or just doing their thing, they have a motif of, they play a motif of having Run the Jewels, doing a song. So it's either like, nobody speak, nobody get hurt while they're just doing their thing, or playing, I think like The Ground Below, those songs. And I just find that incredibly hilarious. So I'm just like, hey, there we go, Mauler Twins, Run the Jewels, heck yeah. Dang, my mouth has been like super dry this entire time. I should have gotten a drink of water. Hydrate or die. Ugh. I get weird talking this long. Like my tongue just feels super weird. But that's really all I wanted to talk about, was just run through the show. Another critique I would have, a big one that I wanted to talk about. I'm not a huge fan of the animation. It's not that it's bad, and when it gets gory, it looks great. But they, overuse a lot of CGI crowds, which it's not distracting enough for me to say, oh, it's a big deal, it's bad. But that's one thing. But the main thing is just, I look at it and it's just basic. There's not a lot of stylization to it. I look at it and I honestly thought of the recent WB animation, like Mike Tyson Mysteries or the new Scooby-Doo stuff, where it's just like, it's very simplistic, and I wish they had more stylization. Even the comics had more stylization than this. So, even though I got used to it, and when it gets bloody, it looks good. The animation still looks just stilted and not as good as it could be if it was more stylized. And stylization is a large part of what stands out to me with animated shows. My favorite animated shows: Infinity Train, Gravity Falls, Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, Amazing World of Gumball, all have very unique art direction, very unique character designs, and stylized character designs that make him stand out. Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated has this really creepy, grimy color scheme. The characters, I've never seen characters designed like that. Amazing World of Gumball blends traditional 2D, Flash, 3D animation, live action settings, and claymation into this broad world of Gumball. I forgot where they live, but Infinity Train has such a unique look to it. Gravity Falls has fun character designs and awesome backgrounds. But with this, it's like, besides the character designs, which came from the comics 90% of the time, nothing about this looks visually unique to me, which is a bit disappointing. But that's like a minor gripe. I mean, the storytelling of the characters alone just completely counteract that. But yeah, I mean, this show is great. And one of my favorite things about shows, or one of my favorite things in shows and movies, is relationships between specifically a father and a son, or a father and a daughter, or a daughter and a son, or a mother and a son. I love like one-on-one parental relationships, and this one mainly focuses on Mark's relationship with his dad. And that's what makes it so heartbreaking once Mark finds out who his dad really is. I'm excited it got renewed for a second and a third season. Excited to see where this goes, even though I kind of have an idea. And hopefully, like, you guys who got this far have seen the show already. So, don't get mad at me if I spoiled it. Yeah, this show's really good. 9 out of 10. Just wish, like, maybe if they get some better funding, the animation will look a bit better. And yeah, that one episode was a bit of a letdown, but the more episodes that come out, the less that's going to matter. But for right now, 9 out of 10. I can easily see it moving up to a 10. Yeah, I think that's it for me tonight. I'm really tired. My tongue feels really weird from talking all this long time. I'm about to fall asleep trying to keep my eyes open. So, I'm going to call it a night. I'm going to put this out for y'all. Yeah. Thank you for listening to the Cinema Lounge. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube, my lovely YouTube viewers, click that subscribe button, click the like button, leave a comment. What did you think about Invincible? What would you give it out of 10? What are some other kind of off the beaten path superhero content that you're enjoying? Because this is the type of stuff I'm kind of into right now. I'm burnt out on Marvel. DC not so much yet, but I'm getting super into these Image comic adaptations and kind of off the beaten path stuff. There is a show on Netflix coming out called Jupiter's Legacy that I'm super excited about. You know, The Boys is still going on, and I'm loving The Boys. Oh, I forgot to put Boys on the list of my favorite currently running shows. Oh well, I'll do that later. Y'all don't care about that. But like The Boys, Invincible, we have Jupiter's Legacy coming out. That's the kind of stuff I'm kind of living for, is off the beaten path superhero content. That's what's getting my creative juices flowing. So, what do you guys think about that? Leave any other comments down below. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you listen to podcasts, that's where we're available. Give us a follow. Give us a rating on Apple Podcasts. Anything is appreciated. I love you all. I'm very tired. So yeah, this has been the Cinema Lounge podcast, where we chill and talk about movies. My name has been Garrett Inman. I'm your host, and I'm going to bed, and I love you all. Stay invincible. That was so stupid.